comic books are really awesome, but I'll be the first one to admit that there is a huge bar to entry when you first get started. However, once you get over that initial hurdle, I firmly believe that everybody enjoys comics. And I would know how difficult it is because I spent most of my life not reading them, but once I got into them, I became absolutely hooked. I previously made a video on how to get started with DC and Marvel comics, and there was a brief section in that video where I talked about how to get into comics for cheap, but it warranted a dedicated video, which this is, because wow, this hobby gets really expensive really quickly. For context, this was my collection within the first few months of me getting into this. So yeah, I definitely picked up some tips and tricks on how to read comics for a lot cheaper. Additionally, this video is not just going to be about DC and Marvel comics. I'm going to also talk about indie books and manga. So without further ado, let's jump into things.
The first thing that you're going to need to know are the various ways that comic books are published. The main three are single issues, trades, and omnibuses. Issues are what most people think of when they think of comic books, and it's the most basic of the basic. These tend to come out monthly and are where all of the pricing kind of starts. Issues are then combined together, usually in sets of 4 to 6 in what is called a trade paperback, or trade for short. In addition to generally being more convenient than regular issues, trades are almost always cheaper than buying individual issues, and they often include bonus materials like sketches. It makes a lot of sense why a large portion of comic fans tend to trade wait.
Despite the name trade paperback, they also come in hardcover. Obviously, these are going to be more expensive, so if you want to get in for cheap, pass on these, strictly go for paperback.
Big shout out to Image Comics, which always sells their first trade of a series for a reduced rate of around $10, and they offer free digital copies of their first issues on their website. That is a really great move, and I wish that other publishers took notice of it. Okay, so when you get a bunch of trades and put them together, you get an omnibus. Remember how trades make the price per issue cheaper? Well, omnibuses tend to do the same thing, but on a much larger scale. Thankfully, this section of the video is now done, so let's talk about how to get all of these for even cheaper. Obviously, you can wait for sales at your local comic shop, but some stores can be really stingy, and a lot of people don't even actually have a comic shop near them. If you fall into this latter category, then do me a favor and go to comicshoplocator.com to just double check. If you still don't have one near you, that's understandable. There are plenty of other options. For example, big retailers like Barnes & Noble sell trades and manga both in-store and over the internet, and they tend to have sales on a regular basis. Additionally, Marvel and DC offer mail order subscriptions directly on their websites. Some indie companies used to do the same thing, but from what I've seen, they've since shut those services down. There's also plenty of online comic shops that have been popping up left and right, but I specifically want to shout out Red Fox Comics, who, for full disclosure, is sponsoring this video. Right now, they're only selling a limited selection of new Marvel and DC comics, and soon to be much more, but at a minimum of 40% off the normal retail price. They fully understand that comics have become way too expensive, and they made their shop to help make the hobby more affordable. Plus, they price match anybody that you send their way. You'd might think that the discount in price would be made up for by shipping costs, but really, their shipping seems to be really cheap. If I'm going to be totally honest, I have no idea how these guys are turning a profit. But hey, they're not paying me for business advice, they're paying me to advertise their shop, which I am. Anyway, if ordering online isn't for you, then there are many places to find cheap or even free comics. Naturally, the first place that you would want to start are secondhand stores like Half Price Books, but it's also worth checking out some of these overstock stores that have been popping up. I recently found a store called Ollie's, and I was surprised by the amount of trades they had. I mean, it's a lot of volume number 2s and a lot of mediocre books that couldn't sell in the first place, but I did find some gems for dirt cheap like Batman Beyond 2.0, which is a series that I really like. But okay, what about the free comics that I was talking about? You guys, you gotta check the library. I mean, yeah, I was super surprised too, but at least here in Texas, every single public library that I visited had a decent selection of comics and manga. This inspired me to buy a few trades of my all-time favorite comic series Invincible for my local library, and if you ever needed to clear up space in your collection, I would definitely love to urge you to consider donating them. So this concludes my section on physical comics, but before a lot of you purists click off off, let me quickly say this. I used to exclusively read comics physically, and I totally understand that it feels better to flip through pages in person, but with how much money I started saving and also how much I needed digital books to get higher quality scans for my videos, I got over it pretty quick. It also became a lot easier when phones started getting bigger and bigger. Plus, most digital comic readers have panel-by-panel guided view, which is super nice. The #1 place for digital comics is Comixology, which is basically just Steam for comic books and manga. There are constant sales on books for like $1 an issue, and although there is a dedicated section for a rotation of free comics, you can frequently find free books listed outside of it. Also, since Comixology is an Amazon company, they have Kindle support and vice versa when you merge your accounts together. Additionally, most indie comics that you purchase on Comixology come with DRM-free backup copies that you can read on programs like Comic Rack, so there's no need to worry about the platform shutting down and getting locked out of your digital content as long as you're properly backing it up on your own devices. Like I said, Comixology is basically Steam but for comic books. However, Humble Bundle also offers comics. I'd really recommend keeping an eye on it for the ability to buy DRM-free digital copies for cheap while also supporting charities. Now, let's talk about subscription services, because frankly, that's where the industry is starting to head towards. Marvel and DC both have their own subscription services in the form of Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe. I am a big fan of both of these companies separately, however, I do have to say that DC Universe is definitely the better app because it also comes with a huge backlog of DC movies and TV shows with some originals to the platform. Comixology also has their own subscription in the form of Comixology Unlimited, but it includes Marvel, DC, and indie books. I personally think that this is the most bang for your buck if you're publisher agnostic. However, Amazon's other services like Kindle Unlimited and Prime Reading have comics as well, but Comixology Unlimited is just a much better investment in my opinion. I also want to give a massive shout out to Shonen Jump, which I think has the best digital service in the entire comic industry. They straight up give the most recent 3 chapters of each of their manga series away for free, but for only $2 a month, you get access to almost everything that they have ever made. It's affordable, it gives a convenient and amazing free model to bring in new readers, and it has a huge catalog. This is something the American comic industry desperately needs to take note of. This is how you adapt to a changing industry. Okay, so here's my last tip, and it's at the end of the video because it's pretty hit or miss. You see, Marvel Comics include a digital code with every issue, but since some folks really don't care about digital, they'll straight up sell or give away the codes. I personally do this through a few people that I buy the codes off of for the series that I'm less interested in, but I also have to still read them because, well, this is my job. But there's also a dedicated subreddit for code trading, and also my Discord has a section to help facilitate trading as well. If you want to join the community, we do a lot more than just trade codes, so if you want to join, just go to discord.gg/trailerdrake. The way I see it, buying codes help make comics more affordable for everybody, regardless of the medium that they prefer to read it in.
Hopefully this video made the crazy expensive world of comics at least a little more bearable. And if you're not tired of my voice, then maybe watch some of the other videos on this channel. I would greatly appreciate it because then I could take that ad revenue and spend it on more comics. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully I'll see you next time.